Since my Abort the Cot scarf has been so popular, I thought it might be a good idea to look at charts and how you can deconstruct them to make anything you want, any words, any letters, any characters. So this is a pretty poor quality print of some simple filet crochet. And this has been done by creating a grid of stitches and then working some to create letters. I prefer to flip this and reverse it, so when I do a slogan on something, I actually make the letters spaces in my crochet and I make the background solid. So let's talk about how we do that and how we might read a chart and translate that into pattern instructions. You'll see I've got some graph paper, not essential, but certainly nice. And I've got a couple of highlighters because highlighters are great. They're really helpful for making information comprehensible. And I'm also going to grab a pen because also useful. Okay, so let's just say I would like to create the words abortion is healthcare, because this is a message I believe in pretty strongly. I don't want my letters to be this big. I would like to make them larger. And so I'm going to think about this, that every little square on this grid here is equal to 3 double crochet. That means that every open square is going to be equal to 1 double crochet and 2 chain. Because then when I'm working my DC and I have a nice solid background, I'm going to get to my pixel, because if you've looked at any of my other filet patterns, you'll know that I think about these spaces as pixels, because that's what they are to my brain, as 1 DC and 2 chain, like that. Actually, that's not how I think about them. I think about them as 2 chain and 1 DC. So let's put that in the right order. And I can't tell you why, but that's just how my brain works. So when I am filling in background, I tell myself to do 3 double crochet. When I would like to create space, I say, hey brain, we're going to chain 2 and 1 double crochet. And that's going to look like this. 3 double crochet. My brain would like a pixel, so I chain 2. And then I finish my pixel with a double crochet. And obviously, if you surround this with other stitches, you'll see that you get that little piece of space in here, which is going to help you make your letters. So this kind of gives you access to the whole world, I think. Let's take this letter A. I have done a bit of counting here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 boxes on my grid paper. And every box is going to represent 3 stitches. Okay, 18 boxes, 3 stitches. Each box will either be, because this is a binary, unlike gender, each box is either equal to 3 double crochet or 2 chain and 1 double crochet. And that means it's either going to be a solid or it's going to be a pixel that helps me to express negative space. Now, when I look at my letter A, I'm going to need to have a couple of spaces below it and a great deal of space above it to allow for these letters that have stems. So I'm thinking about how many spaces I need for a letter with an upper or lower space. Now, abortion is healthcare. That's going to involve the letter H. Let's do the maths on how much space I need for my letter H. This grid shows me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh no, how terrible. I guess if I needed to, I could cut off those bottom 2 just there and pretend they don't exist. And then that would give me 18 squares and I'd be a little bit happier. So let's just say, nope, 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 that's not going to happen. And I will stop my letter H just here, and I'll probably take these 2 spaces out of it so it's a little bit clearer as a H character and doesn't have quite so many frills. So that's how I'm going to get around that problem. And that H looks like my most extended letter with the upstairs and the downstairs. I'm not going to need a G, so I don't have to worry about it. And when I get to my letter I feel like I could probably cut off the bottom 2 pixel rows just here without compromising the structural integrity of what I'm doing. So the maths is going to check out. Let's go back to my letter A and let's look at where my letter's actually going to sit. If I call this row 1, it's always going to be my first 3 DC in the row, my 18th row. And look, there isn't one way of doing this. I'm just trying to give you a little insight into how I decode this stuff, because reading charts can feel really impossible for lots of brains. And this is a workaround that I use. So here is my row 1, and that's going to be my first space on my grid, and it's entirely solid. So I'm always going to have 3 double crochet at the bottom of my letter to kind of frame this and give it some structural integrity. Okay, 3 double crochet for the win. In my second stitch space, because this is my stitches and these are my rows. If I wasn't clear about that, I'm really sorry. I'm thinking about working 54 stitches across, because that's what 18 times 3 is, and I have 3 stitches in every box. And then these are my rows as I work down the scarf. So I have rows along here, and I have stitches along this axis. Okay. Here's the way my brain works information out. Okay, in my second block of stitches, I'm going to have 3 in here, 3 in here, 3 in here, and then I hit my first pixel of A, and I'm going to put in a different combo. How interesting. So all I'm doing here is copying the blocks off this chart onto something that I can see a little bit more easily and understand. And with practice, you can skip this step. You can work straight from this. Get your hook and cotton out and kind of translate as you go. But this is a kind of learning how to step through the process, and color coding is a really solid way of doing that. It's also kind of relaxing. You don't have to get too into it. 1, 2, whoops, I should have put that there. That's better, because all of these guys are going to be pink. This is going to be my foundation where I just work 54 double crochet. Probably should have checked on the status of my highlighter working accurately too. That really would have helped me. Okay, I've got that funny little glitch on my A, so that's that little green blob. And then the rest of that row will just be solid double crochet. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pixels. So remember that when you get to here in your pattern, you're actually going to work 3 DC in each box. 4, 5, 6. And then when you get to here, you're going to go chain 2 and 1 DC. 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 That looked like a person. Chain 2, 1 DC. Chain 2, 1 DC. Okay? So, I hope that's making some kind of sense. Remember, all my pink boxes are just 3 double crochet. Now, let me really blow your mind. In some of these rows, this end double crochet will actually be expressed by your turning chain. So let's just pretend that I start here, okay? And I go up this row and all I do are 54 double crochet. I don't really though, right? Because I started with a turning chain. So that will look like 2 as my turning chain that I pull a little bit taller, and then I do 2 double crochet. I work all the way up here, and when I get to the end and I have my 3 double crochet, I will do a turning chain. and then I will work 2 double crochet. Okay, but it's going to look like 3 double crochet. I work all the way back across, everything is fine. I work a double crochet into the top of that chain, and then here my when I've worked all the way down here, I will actually chain 2 for this row and keep going. So if you want to, you can make up a little rule for yourself about, all your odd rows start with a turning chain or whatever you would like. Always try and know whether your odd rows start at the bottom or the top. Every row starts with a turning chain, but if you go row number 1 starts at the bottom and goes up the ladder, row number 2 starts at the top and goes down the ladder, row number 3 starts at the bottom and goes up the ladder, row number 4 starts at the top and goes down the ladder. It makes life easier. Some people also like to use a 3rd color highlighter and strike the line out or give themselves a little arrow so that they can keep track of where they are in the chart. And that's also a helpful strategy. So I'm just going to finish highlighting this A, and then I'm going to grab my hook and we're going to work through actually making it. So let me crack on with this. Ooh, that's my child tuning her new G on her violin. It is flat because I just changed it, so it's going to keep dropping for a little while. I haven't been very methodical about this. I'm so sorry. Very rude of me. I think I've got all the bits. Yeah, amazing. Okay, that's my A. Kind of missed that one there, but shh, we won't tell anyone. Everything that isn't green is pink, right? If you need to color this in to help your brain, go for your life. The other thing you can do, if you feel the need, is turn this into written instructions. So let's do that as well, because this picture may not make any sense to your brain, and in that case, it's a great idea to have another strategy. This is where I do all my working out. You can see my little lists of stuff going on there. For some reason I skipped like 20 pages randomly because that's how my brain works. Okay, so here I have my cursive, lowercase, A. A is for abortion, A is for access. It's also the first letter of the alphabet. So this might be a sampler for a toddler's bedroom, or it might be a little bit of a protest. You work it out. I can go straight from this. Remember, every box is 3 stitches. So I know that my first row is going to be 54 double crochet, 54 DC. My second row starts at the top, and I'm going to do how many? 18 minus 3, that's 15. 15 times 3 is 45. Okay, I've got 45 DC. Then I'm going to do 1 pixel, and I actually write this as pixel, or I put a little box here for myself, and my brain translates that for me as chain 2 and 1 DC. Then to finish off, I've got 6 in DC to the end of the row, and that's my second row. Third row, I'm ready to start at the bottom. Good times. And I have 6 DC. I'm going to say 6 DC even though the first thing's actually chain 2 and turn, because when I go back at this and check over my work, I don't tend to differentiate between chains and DC. However, you're writing your instructions, so if you want to write chain 2, 5 DC, do that. I am going to write 6 DC, and I'm going to know in my brain that the first DC is actually my chain 2. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pixels. 6 times, chain 2, 1 DC, followed by how many DC? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Remember, each block is 3 DC, so that's going to be 30 DC. Okay, and you just continue on in exactly the same way. You can write yourself step-by-step directions for every row. It's that easy. And then you can just tick them off. So if I would like 54 DC to start with, I'm going to need to chain 54, give them 54 homes, and then give myself a turning chain. Okay, so here I've got my knot around my hook, little loop, not too tight to start or you'll struggle when you get back to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 30, whoa, oh no, 8, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. Okay, so there are now homes for 54 double crochet here. Good times. I'm going to start by chaining 2 to express my first double crochet. So I 1, 2, and think of that double crochet as belonging to that first chain. So now I yarn over and I DC into the 4th chain from my hook that I'm jamming between my thumb and first finger. Okay, there it is. And then you're kind of safe. Okay, you've done the most important thing. Now, just work back along your foundation chain. I'm going to do a DC foundation chain. Oh my goodness, she's still tuning. That string is not settling well. Thank goodness I only changed 1. You will know if you have a little cruise around my YouTube channel that I'm a Suzuki violin teacher. And so a lot of the content on my YouTube channel comes from lockdown times when there were a lot of kids who suddenly couldn't see their teachers. And there were a lot of kids who suddenly couldn't access lessons because they weren't in a school environment, and not every teacher or every school had the technology to make that available. And so I made a lot of tutorials and posted them. And I'm so grateful that now in Australia I can mostly teach face-to-face. Technology is great and it is superb to have the option, and many more people are making a habit of accessing that technology and using Zoom for lessons if they're not entirely well. But it is so good to see my students face to face again. Okay, so I'm just working my double crochet all the way across. Ooh, there we go. I am using a 3.5mm hook. I'm sorry, I didn't even stop to mention that. And this cotton, it's a mill end from Spotlight, and I'm guessing it's around a 4-ply, but it feels like a kind of thick 4-ply. So, I just went with the hook that felt right for it. And if it was really stiff, I would stop and upsize my hook. And if it was too holey, I would stop and downsize my hook and use something smaller. But you can use, of course, any yarn and hook size. And just know that that will, of course, affect the width and length of your finished product, because it will change the gauge of how many stitches you use in a 10 by 10 square. And when you do filet crochet, it's all about the stitch count rather than about the gauge. You can always work up a test swatch. You do a little 10 stitches by 10 stitches, or just do a foundation row like this, and then you can say, uh-oh, that's going to be too narrow or too wide, or whatever you don't like about it, you can change. Okay, I'm so close. Foundation chains are my least favorite part of crochet. And I do like the chainless foundation, but I also find that quite fiddly. It's not something I would choose to demonstrate. I think it's a little bit tricky, and I would love stuff like making, stuff like putting messages in what you're wearing. I think it's a little bit of a subversion of women's crafts traditionally, and I think it should be accessible, and it should be something everyone can adapt to write their own message, whatever that might be for you. Okay, I'm lazy, so I'm not going to count my DC. I'm just going to send positive thoughts because, you know, that's always purposeful. Thoughts and prayers that I have 54 stitches. Actually, I can't do that. I'm going to count. Oh, why do I do this to myself? Okay, so this solid row is this first line here on my pattern. Okay, solid DC all the way across. I've got to check there are 54. I can't do it. Oh, without tweaking it. Okay, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, 54. It's a miracle. Okay, so now that I know I do have 54, I'm just going to squeeze that knot a little bit tighter so that I don't have a big hole at the start of my row. Now I'm starting up here at the top of row 2. So I'm going to chain 2 to stand in for my first double crochet. I pull the top a bit longer and then I turn my work and I work into the next space along. Okay, and that's my second DC. And this is where you probably need to count, right? So this is counting as 1 and this is 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. I'm actually going to be really lazy. I'm just going to wing it. And when I get close to the end, I'm going to count back from the end of my chain because I'm lazy and it's easier to count to 6. I could count to 45. I'm just not really in the mood. But I hope this is useful because reading charts is not, I think, a terribly popular skill or a terribly available skill. And so learning how to work them out, even if you work through this kind of intermediate step a few times to get the hang of it, opens up the world in terms of what you can do with different patterns and how you can follow charts. Yeah, Monty, you've got muddy feet. You can't come in. Okay. As you can see, I'm getting closer to the end. I need to have 6 double crochet left over. Oh yeah, not looking too bad. Oh, my tummy's rumbling. One pixel, that takes up 3 stitches space because it's chain 2 and 1 DC, and then 6 more double crochet to the end. That's a grand total of 9. So when I have 9 stitches left in my foundation row, I'm going to stop and make that pixel. That looks like 11. I don't know, can't count. So I'm working along my second row until I've got 9 left. I'm going to stop and do a quick count here. I can't bear it. I want to make sure I've got 45 in my top row before I start that pixel. So 1, count your chain 2 as your first DC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 44. Okay, work one more. Lucky I checked. One more DC. Super. Okay, 1 pixel. That means that you chain 2. You obviously skip the next 2 DC in your sequence and then finish your pixel with 1 DC. Now, got to put 6 more DC in. Oh, yep, I've just got room. How lucky is that? The maths works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have to work into that top of my turning chain because I counted that as my DC. Okay, so now I have this to line up. Check it out, happy days. This is my second row complete. So I worked from the top of the A down to the bottom, and that meant working a mostly solid row. Pink, 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 pixel, and then 6 DC to finish off. Alrighty. Let us continue on. Just a reminder, because I always freak myself out a bit here. I look at this and I go, oh, there's 7 DC and I was only meant to do 6. Yeah, just calm down, because your pixel was chain 2 and a DC. Okay, so that's all the pixel stuff. Then you do 6 DC. So don't freak out there. Don't get confused between the 6 and the 7 and stuff. And this is, again, it's just the way I think. I could also have written 45 DC, chain 2, 7 DC. That's also correct. But for me, because I'm going to do multiple pixels, this idea of working a negative space, my brain just prefers to finish the 6 boxes and then start a fresh DC count. So that's how I translate these instructions. If that doesn't work for you, find a different way. Okay, here we go. I'm going to chain 2, and that counts as my first double crochet. So I chain 2, and now I have to do 5 more double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And hallelujah, look at that, it lines up just like it does here in my boxes. Now I have 6 pixels. So 6 times I'm going to chain 2 and do a DC. Work into the top of that DC. Next pixel, chain 2. Make sure that you skip 2, okay? Just be careful when you do this the first 18 times, because I have been known to screw this up and then put my whole stitch count out, and it's very upsetting. Third pixel. Whoop. Fourth pixel. Fifth pixel. And 6th pixel. Okay, so my pixels are matching. This is working. This looks like the letter A over here that I painstakingly copied onto my grid paper and then counted and wrote myself instructions for. And you don't have to do any of this. I'm just showing you how my brain processes this information and how I do the working out. If you can do it all in your head the first time, you are amazing, and I salute you. If not, maybe I've given you some new skills that will open up a new world of information for you, which I really hope is the case. Okay, I'm just going to DC up the rest of that row because that's what my pattern says to do. When I get to the end, I'm going to make sure that I work a double crochet in the top of the turning chain from row 2, because otherwise my stitch count will be out and that's upsetting. The good news about filet crochet is that if you use your common sense and you make your pixels line up, it is not the end of the world if you accidentally lose a stitch. You can usually sneak an extra 1 in to make your stitch count up without ever noticing. You know, the joys and the imperfections. Of course, it's also good to develop good habits so that when you want to work on more complex patterns like Sophie's Universe or the Hooked on Sunshine Blankets or Rings of Change or any of those amazing works, you have good habits and you understand why turning chains are important and how to deal with them. And that different designers conceptualize them differently. Okay, this is the top of my second last DC. okay, because I have to treat this turning chain like a double crochet. There we go. And that's also how you get a nice straight edge. So there are the first 3 rows of my little cursive fancy A shape that's going to look just like this when I finish. And I strongly encourage you to find some letters that you like, find a pattern that appeals, and have a go. And if that's not quite within your ballpark, I will finish writing this up. I will make it available through my Etsy store and Ravelry. And you can find me at Keep Calm and Crochets. Please like, share, subscribe, and enjoy.